Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. We serve people who face challenges with prosecution, sentencing, and prison. My co-founders are Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. My name is Michael Santos. We create digital content and our team offers individual consulting services. We also assist agencies that want to improve outcomes. To learn how we can help you, text the word Prison Pro to 44222. Again, text Prison Pro to 44222 and get our free brochure. You can also visit us at prisonprofessors.com or contact Justin at 818-424-2220. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Send confirmation that you reviewed our podcast and we'll send you a free digital book. Stay tuned for a 20 to 30-minute episode of Prison Professors. Welcome to Prison Professors. Today, I get the privilege of introducing you to Ingrid Letterhead Okud. She is an amazing woman who had an amazing career, but now she is going to be using her experiences in the criminal justice system and what she has learned about the jewelry business to educate and possibly to entertain. But I'm going to let her tell that story. So Ingrid, I want to welcome you to Prison Professors. I want to thank you for sharing your story with us. And we can start off, if it's okay with you, by just giving us a little bit of background about your career before you went into the criminal justice system.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for having me today. I had a wonderful career in the jewelry industry, working for a luxury goods firm for a little over 20 years. And I had the responsibility for not only designing, but producing and creating beautiful jewelry. And unfortunately, a very poor decision led to a felony conviction and a 10-month sentence in Alderson Federal Prison Camp in 2014.
You said that your conviction resulted in a lot of media publicity. Could you tell our audience a little bit about that publicity and how you were able to get on with your life when you saw your name plastered across headlines?
On the very good advice of my lawyer, I tended not to read a lot of the articles because I really don't think I was in any type of emotional state to be able to handle so much press. Because they work for a well-known company, the articles were across the world. I had friends as far as Australia and Hong Kong calling me about what happened. It was incredibly challenging to be able to have your story and a mistake you made so widely broadcast. And my biggest concern was for my family. I was very concerned about how they were handling it. My father was quite ill at the time. It was devastating on all accounts. So my concern was less so about what they were saying about me and more so about how do I protect my family. And that led me to an immediate plea deal because I just wanted this to end as quickly as possible. And it was, for me, the best way to handle the situation. In hindsight, I'm sure there are many things that I could have done differently, but for me, that was the best thing for me and my family at the time.
Frankly, from somebody who's went through the criminal justice system and was locked up for 26 years, I would say that you did make the best decision by agreeing to accept responsibility and plead guilty and get on with your life. The result of that is that you served a sentence that didn't completely derail your future, where now you have an opportunity to begin building again. Are you at liberty to talk at all about what type of conviction it was and how your experience was in going through the criminal justice system?
Sure. It was a theft, and it was across state lines, which made it a federal case. So I worked in New York City and I lived in Connecticut. So I removed merchandise from my company that did not belong to me, and I took it home with me. That is a crime. I immediately knew I did something wrong. And when confronted with it, I had to do what was right and take accountability. At that point in time, not being familiar with the criminal justice system, not being aware of the Bureau of Prisons or anything, never even watching one episode of CSI, I had no idea what was coming in front of me. And I was pretty shocked at what happens once you're convicted of a felony. I had no idea how challenging it would be to re-enter society. I had no idea that once you had a felony conviction, how impossible in some cases it would be to get a job, that you were limited to where you could travel. There were so many things I didn't know that I quickly took it upon myself to educate myself. And I knew that my life as I knew it had changed dramatically, and I need to refocus and think about what I was going to be doing going forward to be able to support myself and to be able to have a second career. What was my new career going to be? How was I going to handle this? And I love working. I couldn't imagine sitting home all day or not being able to contribute to society, because I had worked for so many years, and not in a traditional 9-to-5 job. I was working 18-hour days. I was working 7 days a week. I was traveling around the world. It was, to go from that to sitting in West Virginia in a federal prison camp, trying to fill your days. And for 10 months, I took that time to really think about what I wanted to do in the second part of my life, and to really think about my circumstances and what mattered to me and didn't matter to me. And I feel like I got an opportunity that many people don't get. I got an opportunity to evaluate what was important in life, who was important in my life, and how I wanted to spend the rest of my life. And if I continued on that working path that I had been, I think I would have blinked and it would have been another 20 years of work, and I would never have had that opportunity to see what really mattered and who really mattered to me.
You have an opportunity now to communicate with people who are in the same situation that you were in the sense of either they're going into the criminal justice system or they are currently incarcerated. And I think it would be really helpful. You'd spoken a little bit about you didn't know what would follow in this criminal justice system. Could you walk us through about exactly what those steps were? Like, were you arrested, or did you have a surrender? How did you choose counsel? Let's take it step by step. How did you come into the system?
I had an FBI team show up at my house at 6 a.m, and that was the wake-up call. And
how long was it from the time that the offense took place until the time the FBI came? How much time passed?
It was 3 or 4 months, I would say.
So during those 3 or 4 months, there was no notification that you were perhaps the target of an investigation?
No, absolutely not. I'd had minimal contact with my company. I had matter of fact, I had engaged a labor lawyer because we were negotiating an exit package. My departure from my company had nothing to do with this theft. They were unaware of it at the time. When they became aware of it is when the investigation began. And I had no idea that I was under review by the FBI or anything until they showed up at my doorstep.
Did they take you into custody that day?
Yes, they did. And it was very rapid from there. They took me from my home in Connecticut into New York City, into the Southern District of New York. I'd never been in that type of environment ever before in my life. I was really in a state of shock. I was immediately taken into a holding area, and then I was taken into a courtroom where I was given this document, this huge document. I don't even know how many pages it was, and I was assigned a public defender and was basically told what would be ahead of me, what I could be facing. And shortly thereafter, I was able to post bond and was released home the same day.
And you said that you were represented by a public defender. Did you stay with that public defender, or did you end up retaining counsel?
That was a decision that I discussed with my family. I made the decision to go with a public defender, probably against the wishes of my family. I think
you made a good decision.
The reason I decided upon that was the FBI freezes all your accounts. Many people don't realize this. They freeze everything that you have. So I did not want to put an added financial burden upon my family. As I mentioned, my father was already sick, and this was incredibly stressful for everyone involved. And I was hoping to end this as rapidly as possible. I wanted to plead guilty that day. I wanted to end it and
move on.
Right, move on. That was
really my page. I think that's a great, great lesson. And from somebody who made just the opposite choice, meaning I did spend mid-six-figure fees on attorneys and fought the system. And as a result of those bad decisions that I made, received a very long sentence. Federal defenders have enormous training, particularly in negotiating guilty pleas. And for a lot of people, it makes all the sense in the world to rely upon their expertise, because I consider them to be, really good advocates for people who want to turn the page and move forward. And so you did that really quickly. You said, what was the ultimate sentence that you received?
I received a 10-month sentence, and at the time when I chose the public defender, I didn't really have much communication with her at all. It was a very swift process. She didn't even assist with my PSR. I did my own PSR. I went to my meeting alone with the gentleman who was going to provide a sentencing suggestion to the judge. I went alone. She wasn't with me. So my whole, at that time, all I wanted to do is let's keep this moving. Let's get it going. Let's get a trial date. Or not a trial date, but rather a judgment date. And let's get this going as quickly as possible. Fortunately, between the time I was taken into custody, which is in July of 2013, to the day that I was sentenced, which was in December, which is people may not understand, but in the criminal justice system, that's considered very fast. I was frustrated how slow it was. And then upon my sentencing in December, I took it upon myself to self-surrender as quickly as possible. So I've self-surrendered prior to the date in which I had to go to Alderson Federal Prison Camp, because again, I wanted just to
get the time moving.
I mean, my lawyer at the time kept saying, "Oh, Ingrid, take your time, spend the summer with your family, and then go." And I looked at her and said, "Why would I ever want to do that? That's 6 more months of me not working and not contributing to society. Don't I want to get this over with and get back?" And I was very fortunate because Alderson Federal Prison Camp, for people that are not aware of it, is nicknamed Camp Cupcake. And there's a reason that Martha Stewart's lawyers chose that location. It's actually beautiful. It's very close to the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia. It's rolling hills. It's a beautiful atmosphere. And I was determined to make the most of my time there. I was not going to sit and wallow in self-pity for 10 months. That just would not have been productive.
You're absolutely right, in my opinion, to begin moving toward resolution at the earliest possible time. A lot of people make a different decision. They try to stay out as long as they can, even asking for extensions. And of course, there are personal reasons that may make sense for some people. But at the other end of the journey, I think people can look back and say, wow, that time that I was out really felt like I was in prison, but it didn't count. And so in your case, you had a lot of time built up and you were able to get back to society sooner. But you said you surrendered before. Did you say you surrendered before the sentencing date or at the sentencing date?
No, I surrendered after I was sentenced. They give you a date in which you need to be at your facility.
Right.
I surrendered before then because they had given me, I think, 3 or 4 months time.
Right. And you just went to Alderson right away.
I went within a month. Yeah.
So some people will go even sooner than that. I mean, you'd mentioned that you were in kind of a state of limbo from the time of your arrest until the time that your sentence was imposed. Some people actually go into custody during that period of time just to get the clock ticking. They know they're going to do some time. The downside to that, of course, is that you're serving it inside that prison at 500 Pearl Street rather than in Camp Cupcake. So tell us, go ahead.
Time really to get all my affairs in order. I needed time at home to get my life in order. I was in a fortunate situation. I did not have small children at home. I had 2 grown stepchildren. So my decision might have been vastly different if I had had small children at home. I took that opportunity to say, I have a few months and I'm going to get all of my financial house in order. I'm going to do as much as I can do to prepare things before I go away. Because while I was away, I did have to sell my house and do other things. So I needed to get everything lined up before I went away because I did not want to leave my family and friends with a night. They'd already dealt with a nightmare. I didn't want to give them any more stress during that time.
How was your experience in federal prison? Tell us a little bit about your activities at Alderson.
Like anyone, I was dreading the situation. I had no idea what to expect. You watch these television television programs and you think, oh my God, this is just going to be horrendous. I had received flyers in the mail for self-defense courses before I went. And I thought, oh my God, I need to take a self-defense course. I really had no idea. And actually, one of my friends said to me, if Martha Stewart went there and could handle it, you can go and handle it. And they were right. The minute I got there, I was surprised. I was shocked. There was very little security. I don't think people realize, there was no barbed wire. There were no large structural fences of any type. It was a camp in that regard. So there are different levels. I wasn't even aware that there were different levels of prisons. I knew nothing about the criminal justice system. And I noticed immediately that a sorority formed. It's all women. They're all there. They're very nurturing. I'm not saying everyone was pleasant and nice, but I have to say the majority of the people there were incredibly kind. They all had gone through the same circumstance. So the minute you got in, they had a program set up for acclimating people, and they did everything for you. They showed you, there's a structure to federal prison camp people may not be aware of. They showed you what time of day you had to be there for a count, what the food situation was like. I had no idea that there was even a commissary. I was shocked. At Alderson, there's also a hair salon. There was a teaching facility. There was a library. So in my mind, I had the worst possible expectation. So when I got there, I was very pleasantly surprised. And I have to say, I don't wish it upon anyone, but if you had to do what I had to go through, I would give them a 3-star Michelin rating in terms of federal prison camp. So, but that was me. I went in expecting the worst, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I would not recommend the medical facilities. I thought they were appalling. But I think given my short sentence, I was able to forego medical procedures. But if you are sick in that type of environment, I am very concerned for people there. And I made the most of my time there. I took it upon myself to help people that were getting their GEDs. I personally did a tremendous amount of reading. I read books that I had never had time to read. I don't ever remember having that much time off in my life. So to have 10 months of me time was pretty incredible. And I tried to make the most of it in that regard.
Good for you. And you concluded your sentence. Tell us a little bit about what followed after you concluded your sentence and returned to society as a convicted felon. What types of challenges did you face?
I think the biggest surprise to me was I knew I wasn't going to go back into my former industry. That I knew was not an avenue I could pursue. But I think what surprised me more is that with a felony conviction, there are very few industries you can go into, period. And I found it very, very challenging to find even a basic position anywhere because I was very upfront with people in stating that I did have a felony conviction. So I was either overqualified because of my education and my work experience, or because I had a felony conviction, I wasn't even under consideration. So I figured out very rapidly that I needed to make my own path. And I started a blog called the WCC Handbook.com.
WCC Handbook.com. And that stands for what?
The White Collar Club Handbook.com. And I really did it initially for family and friends, just for them to see, listen, I made it through. Here are some funny anecdotes from my time. And I tried to provide a little levity to an otherwise extremely serious situation, so that they could see that I not only survived, but I thrived. And it's grown from there. So I did a lot of blog posts, and then I published my book, The White Collar Club Handbook, just for people to read, to help them. I sent it to Abby Miller, the dance mom, before she was going off to prison. She read it, and thought it was hysterical because she was dreading the same experience I was. She had no idea what to expect.
She's just getting out this week, as a matter of fact.
Yes. And that was really just my way of saying, listen, you can make it through. After writing the blog, I said, there's so much more I can do. Now that I'm much more read on criminal justice and criminal justice reform, I feel like there's such a need for change, especially when you're a first-time nonviolent offender. Isn't there a better use of your time? I would have been happy to do anything as opposed to go to federal prison camp. let me teach inner city youth. Let me do something to contribute to society instead of paying to feed and clothe me for 10 months. I felt like it was an incredible waste of federal money. So I wrote an article for the Huffington Post about that, talking about my story and talking about the need for second chances and letting people have that second chance. And that's not saying that somebody convicted of an accounting issue should go back into the accounting field, but let them help somebody learn math at the grade school level. I just feel like there's so much more that people can be doing to contribute to society. Don't you want people coming out of federal prison to be contributing members of society? I would think so. And it doesn't matter what political party you're in. You want people to be productive and contributing and taxpayers. So that kind of became something that I've been passionate about. And the other thing I'm passionate about is supporting prison libraries, because so many people don't have access to money in federal prisons and they don't have access to books. So I started researching prison libraries, and all the proceeds from the White Collar Code Handbook go towards supporting prison library programs. So I send books every month. I've sent, I think, over 500 books year to date to prison library programs. And it's mostly educational books. I send a lot of dictionaries, a lot of foreign language books, a lot of technical books. People can come out and become plumbers and other things. And that's really something that I have become passionate about. And that's something I devote a lot of time to. Because I think that's something that at least I, in some small way, can contribute back to people.
Well, you're contributing a lot right now just by sharing your story. I know how hard it is, but I also know that you can overcome. And you can overcome when we realize, hey, we have to live in the world as it exists and not as we would like it to be. And you're absolutely right that it's tough to find employment, and that should motivate and inspire people to develop skills so they can create their own jobs. And I know that that's what you are doing, not only through the White Collar Club, but also through your new published writings. Could you tell our audience a little bit about this exciting project that you have been working on, and tell us a little bit about the progress you're making?
I am working on now a novel on the jewelry industry. The title is not published yet, so I haven't released that. But it is a novel about, obviously heavily based on my experience in the jewelry industry, but it's pretty much Mad Men meets Devil Wears Prada. And it's an interesting novel that will be published later on this year. And that I have been fortunate to be in a position where I can devote a lot of my time to writing. And I've also written an article for the Huffington Post, and I've reached out to several other publishers about contributing to them, because I do think it's important to give back. And this is the avenue that I've found. What I encourage people to do in my blog is find what your avenue is and try something that may not have ever considered before. I don't consider myself a good writer. I never considered myself to be in the writing profession, but it's something that I've ended up doing now. But as I wrote in one of my blog posts, if as a young kid you were great at kayaking and you live in an area where there are kayaks, start your own kayak business and do kayak tours. You've got to think outside the box and get creative, because you are the master of your own destiny and you have to create that opportunity. Don't wait for somebody else to create that for you. And that's why I just continue reaching out all the time to people to see how I can help them or be of assistance, because the more of us that are out there helping and guiding people, the better. And I found that what I call the Scarlet F network, those of us that have been labeled with the Scarlet F, this network is stronger than any LinkedIn network I've ever had. And people are more than willing to assist you and listen and help and talk you off the edge when you've had a bad day, and really get you mentally and physically ready for that next part of your life.
Well, I appreciate you for sharing your story. We will certainly put a link up to your blog. Is there any other type of information you'd like to provide for our listeners who still may be in society that want to connect with you? Do you have a Twitter feed or Facebook page or anything like that?
I do. I have, I'm not on Facebook, unfortunately, but I have at the WCC Handbook, which is my Twitter feed, which anyone's welcome to.
Is it the WCC Handbook?
The WCC Handbook. And I still contribute to my blog, the WCChandbook.com. And I have a Gmail, the WCChandbook@gmail.com. So anyone's welcome to reach out to me. I've had people randomly find me based upon all the press that was around my particular situation. And I have maybe once every few weeks, I hear from somebody randomly that's found my name and email and ask me questions about their particular situation. Hopefully I'm able to help them in some small way get through this. And it's been people that have been both anticipating their trial and other people that have just been released from prison that have reached out to me. So whatever I can do to help people and get them through this, I've been there. I know what it's like. I know how low you can go. And I can tell you honestly that there is a second, even better portion of your life that you haven't explored yet.
You've certainly done it, and I want to thank you again for spending this time with us this morning. Actually, I said that woman is getting out this week, but I forgot we're recording this in mid-February. This won't air until mid-March. But I do want to thank you, Ingrid. This is Ingrid Letterhead Okud, who is an author and somebody who is a master at overcoming struggle. We're grateful to you for spending this time with us. And we look forward to learning more about your new book when it comes out. And when you're free to release the title, please let us know so that we could let those in our audience know about it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow with another inspiring guest. If you'd like to know more about Prison Professors, please visit our website at prisonprofessors.com or send a text with the word Prison Pro to 44222. We wish you success on your journey with struggle and overcoming it. You can learn that you can overcome it just as Ingrid did, just as so many others have done as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.